I had to put my pride aside of my 23 years of business and my company's going down and suck it up and be like, okay, if I'm going to make something, I have to start over and I can't be afraid to do it. And so, you really have to take fear out of that factor if you want it.
Welcome, everyone. It is the Relaunch podcast. And as you know, I love to bring on people that I find super interesting so that these conversations are so genuine, so authentic. And let me tell you, this one, no doubt, will change the way you think about relaunching in your life. And she has metamorphosized, that I can still say that. She has grown into this incredible being that I have truly enjoyed getting to know over probably the last 6 months. And I said, you've got to come on. And finally, today is the day. I want you to meet a change maker. Like in the dictionary, this woman would be there. Her name is Dr. Julie Ducharme. She has dedicated her career to empower and support people in all of their endeavors and dreams. She's a dream maker too. People from all over, including corporate sector, we're talking entrepreneurs, workforce folks, everyone have taken the advice and guidance of Dr. Julie and learned how to use their strengths and maximize their work-life success. We talk about work-life balance. She says, kick that to the curb. It's work-life success, which I love. Her unique speaking style ignites the passion inside all of us that actually helps make those tiny sparks, and you know how I am, the spark maker here, into a blaze of empowerment. She has earned her MBA, her doctorate in business, organizational leadership, and Dr. Julie has become a 5-time national best-selling author. She's been recognized in Inc. magazine. She hosts a podcast. She's got TV appearances, coming out of everywhere. And she is now really going to be talking about not only her most recent book, Authentically You, Empowering Your Way to Success, but she's going to be talking about the other things in life that also matters. And when you are an entrepreneur, when you are building businesses, sometimes we forget about the things that really are important in making impact in people's lives. And she's been able to move and merge and bring it all together. Dr. Julie, welcome to the Relaunch podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So fun to have you here.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love it. As we're joking, like about all the things that for us to get here, right? Like you had crazy.
Oh my, it has been it. You know what though? Perseverance, right? And I have a funny story about perseverance. My daughter had done a river rafting trip, and there was that great picture where it was on the American River. They took this image. She's in the raft. We've just gone through, I think it was like stage 4 rapids. She's probably 12 years old. And her expression is just like, I'm going to do this. And a friend of mine decided to literally blow it up into like gigantic size and put perseverance on the actual poster. But the problem, Dr. Julie, they actually spelled perseverance wrong. So I always laugh at that we're like, we can't throw it away. It's too good. It gives us a laugh every time. But as we're sitting here, and we have now come together, I would love for you to walk through what you would classify, and I know that you have so many different relaunch stories, but what has been the most impactful relaunch that you have had so far that has really brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as you said, I've definitely had a couple of relaunches in my life. If we want to talk about recently, COVID was really impactful and affecting a lot of my businesses a couple of years ago. And so much so that a business of 23 years was completely shut down. I didn't know if I was going to save it. and my other businesses were really hit really hard. And
Well, Julie, explain why they were really hit hard. What about COVID just flattened them?
sure. So the state I was in, one of my companies was an event company. So it's an actual physical on-ground company that's been around for 23 years, one of the biggest companies in San Diego. And when that was shut down, we lost not only hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we were not allowed to do anything. I mean, we could get arrested if we did anything. So I literally had to shut the entire company down, let go all of my employees, and we had millions of dollars in equipment sitting. We thought it was going to be a couple of weeks, turned out to be over a year. And so that was that was my first company that I created. It was very near and dear to me. And so it didn't just impact my company, it impacted me, because that was like my baby, my first one. I created that when I was 23. And then of course, my other companies, my consulting company, my sports equipment company, also that was shipping issues, creating things overseas wasn't happening. And my technical vocational school, which was on ground, we had to close all the facilities and move it online, which is an issue for our veterans who are required to be on ground or they lose their scholarship. So each and every one of my companies each one is very personal to me, because I don't just make companies to make them. I make them out of the passion that I have and what I believe in. And so it was a really, really tough time for us for a while there. I was definitely having a pity party on all of that, because I was just like, where do I go? Like, I never thought that scenario could happen. I mean, I just really didn't. I could see a natural disaster happening, but we'd be up and going still. And even through all my years, we'd had massive fires out here. We made it through that. We had some natural disasters. We made it through that. But this was like totally just it really threw me to the wall. And
Dr. Julie, I've got to say something. You had 4 companies and each one of them was brought down. Mm-hmm. And so here you've built up what we call legacy, right? You've got all these businesses, they're successful. And you thought hey, looking out at the horizon, you've set yourself up really well, really well. Because each and every one of those companies could have been an independent company for you, really helping you with, all of your bills, all of the things, your livelihood and all that. And next thing you know, they're all flattened. And so you said you had your pity party. Yeah. I bet it was a little bit more than a pity party, right? You're like, oh my God, what's next?
It was a good little pity party. And then I realized I'm like everything else in life, Julie, we have to pivot. We have to figure this out. I mean, this is our livelihood. And I didn't work this hard to lose everything, Right. And so that was kind of my first moment. And, sat down with my teams and we started going like, what can we do? How do we pivot? How do we change this? How do we bring income back in? Because everyone was in survival mode. Nobody wanted to spend any extra money. Everyone was pulling their contracts. We're just going to hold right now. We're not going to do anything. And we started to pivot, started with someone called me about creating a course, which we'd created many, many courses ago, for many years, but he happened to be good friends with the royal family. And so we created a course for him, which he loved. And he opened up his, as we say in the old days, little black book of all his buddies and started promoting the heck out of us. And before you know it, we were creating courses for some of the biggest names. A lot of them I can't mention because we have contracts with them.
But you had said you actually had already decided that you were doing courses.
So the change for us was that we ended up doing a course for a man who's connected to the royal family and other really important celebrities and other groups. And he was so thrilled about what we did for him. He opened up his black book for us. And before you know it, we were doing courses for a lot of different really well-known people. And we were making back our money, which was really substantial. And it was an interesting pivot because we were doing courses that were very different. We were originally doing courses for schools. Now we were creating masterminds and really these people who wanted to just create their legacy and put it into some type of course. So I don't want to say it was overnight, but it felt like overnight. Suddenly we were brought into this new group of clientele that were in the very top echelons of things. And each time we did something, they were so grateful and they loved it so much that then they would connect us to another buddy of theirs. And so it was just a really interesting pivot because suddenly we're in this world of celebrities and movie stars and royalty, like, in a month. And you're like, what am I?
But you know what I find fascinating about you is that, yes, you allowed yourself to say, okay, wow, this really sucks. I mean, all four of my businesses. But then you opened yourself up to, all right, but we got to figure out something here. Like, we're going to make this work. You threw it out there. You kind of had these lofty goals, like, we're going to get back on track. We're going to have this massive success again. And and I love it, your brain, it started to go to work. And next thing you know, somebody is calling you saying, hey, can you help with this? And you had done courses for education in one of your companies, but this was something totally different. So you were willing to say yes. You were willing to say, we'll give it a try. But there had to have been that moment of like, okay, this is a different direction. But how did you say, I'm going to try it? I'm going to go for it.
I mean, me as a person, I'm very competitive. I have a lot of grit. I think it started with my sports and also I was always the underdog, to be totally honest. Like in everything I did, I was always the underdog. And I just kind of have this fire in me that I was like, this isn't it. Like I've worked too hard. Like, and I've always been that person. Like, if you can give me a book and I can figure out, I'll do it. Like, if you're like, Julie, I need you to sword fight. Okay. It's like, let me watch a YouTube video and I'll try it. Like, I've never been a person that like, that's not in my area of expertise. So I'm backing out of it. I'm more like, okay, let's just figure out how we do it. How do we do it? How do we become experts? And that's what we did here. And it was comical because, I'd get a cell phone call from like someone famous and be like, hey, such and such gave me your cell phone. I want to talk. And I'd be like, okay. Like totally unprepared. Cause I mean, you're just like, wait, what? Like, and then, I was thinking to myself too, like, is someone punking me? Like, what's going on? Like, but it was an interesting pivot. And I had to learn a lot. And I think this is really, really important when we're pivoting in industries or we're changing or we're relaunching, is like, I had to go relearn some things. I had to understand the industry, the culture. I would study those people so I could understand their likes, their dislikes. So that way I could go into this conversation and understand a little bit about them, right? Because every person that came to me, they wanted their legacy put into something. And so I had to understand that legacy and who they were. And it was a really interesting time and obviously an interesting evolution company, because we had never planned to go in that direction. But I was like, listen, let's do it. Let's own it. And then before you know it, we're not just becoming this like stable name for like all these famous people doing all this stuff for them, but suddenly we're entering onto all these other new industries and areas. People are like, you know what, could you help us do this commercial? Could you do, before, and we had done it before, but same thing again, it was just on like such a bigger level. And my team was great. My team was like, let's do it. Let's figure it out. I mean, and that's, I think, something that's so important with a relaunch or a pivot that you're doing is like, you have to have a team that's willing to innovate and change and drop on a dime and do that and not be afraid to go try it. Because if you are, we would have never made the pivot. And I gave a TEDx where I talk about this moment and I'm like, you know what? My company became bigger and made more money than it ever would if that hadn't have happened. We would have never made that, which it launched us literally into a whole new industry and even a new bracket of what we were bringing in money wise. So I always say that, despite how horrible it was, it's the thing that actually relaunched my company into the bigger and best version of it. And so I mean, not that I'm like thankful for COVID. I'm not remotely. It hurt a lot of people negatively. And I do have one of my oldest companies that's still trying to come back from it. It was very detrimental to that. But we took my other company and flipped it into something so much bigger and huger than that. And so that's been a recent moment of relaunch that has now launched it into, we have 2 new companies starting this week.
I love this, but let's go back for 1 second, because I know that there's going to be people that are really thinking about their own businesses, and so many that haven't had that complete, kind of take out at the knees moment where the company is no longer viable. But then all of a sudden they just feel like that spark, that thing about the company, now that things have changed so much in the world, that they're kind of like, is this really the direction I want to go forward in? And being able to relaunch either a part of the business or the entire business, right? Taken in a totally new direction like you did, where you're like, wait, I've done these courses, never have done it this way, and then new opportunities have come to you. What do you recommend to those people that are nervous, scared, afraid, as mid zoners, as I call us, that is this the right time, or should I just keep doing the status quo?
Yeah. Innovation and change never happen because of fear. I mean, we just can't be fearful. The best and the brightest and the most amazing things that were brought to our world was because someone was willing to fail over and over. They took the fear and put it aside, and they didn't worry about, who would care or not care. They just went for it. And I think that's the most impactful way to go forward. I had to put my pride aside of my 23 years of business and my company's going down, and suck it up and be like, okay, if I'm going to make something, I have to start over, and I can't be afraid to do it. And so, you really have to take fear out of that factor if you want it. And I think the difference between a person who isn't an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur is that, because entrepreneurs have to take daily risk. And I was very young, at a young age, I was very risk adverse. I didn't want to take a lot of risk. And I look back, and that actually held me back quite a bit. And when I finally got to the point of like, listen, we just got to do it. And some things I've done has failed proportionately. It was like, you know what, we failed, but now we know how to do it right. So now we're going to go back and do it right. And some things you did, and you're like, oh, this probably isn't going to work. And it was like a crazy success. And you're like, I can't believe that worked. Right. But, you have to have those moments. That's like what defines us. And so I think that, if you're sitting on the sidelines and you're not sure, you've got to evaluate, like, where do you want to go in life? If you may have to fail a couple more times, to get, we think about all of our famous inventors, right? And how many times they failed. I think about people like Elon Musk. Do you think that, did he create all that stuff and did it go through the first time? No, I'm sure there was a massive amount of trials and errors, and there still is, right? We hear about the adjustments and changes of technology and the evolution of it. So, that's just my perspective. And that's also my personality. I'm just like a never die. I'm not going down. If I'm going down, I'm fighting tooth and nail until the very end.
It's interesting because when you say evolution, Darwin says it's not the strength that will allow you to remain. It was, the people that are willing, or the groups that were willing to change, they were the ones that were going to be around. And so I look at that and I think, you know what, that's what we're talking about right now. It's not being complacent. It's not just sitting there and saying, you know what, it's working. I'm okay with my, small growth. It's how can you be, as we opened up with, being that change maker, but the dream maker, and actually having it happen for you. So now you are taking, how many of the 4 companies are you going back to now and seeing, can I make those come to life again?
Yeah. So we have 3 of them back up and going. The 4th one is getting there, but it's just a rebuild time because we have to it's a local company. And so so many companies shut down during that time frame that we have an overload and we can't get enough workers and enough people. And so what we're trying to do is really rehire, retrain, get everyone back out there. And it's just a process to do that. Good example is we had a lot of sports clubs shut down in San Diego that didn't make it through that period. And when the few that remained opened up, they had over 1,000 kids come and try out. And they were sending out emails going, we wish we could take all your kids, but we just can't. There's not enough capacity. And so that's where my events company is we just are trying to make enough capacity for that. So, and then of course we have 2 new companies that will be launching this week, which are offshoots from my company, but they've just gotten so big that we've had to separate them just for like logistics and all of that, and put those out. So we'll essentially have 6, by the end of the week.
Okay, I got to ask this question because I know people are sitting there listening saying, there's people like Tony Robbins and Sir Richard Branson that have 30 plus companies that they are running and managing. How do you do it? How do you do it now? You said, I'm launching 2 more this week. I've got these other ones. How do you manage your time? Because we all have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm like a time management queen. I have to say that.
You have to be. You have to be.
I can't have chaos. So I keep like a super tight schedule. Probably the most important thing I learned early on was that you have to get good teams in place. When you get good teams in place, I can show up and they're implementing the vision and I don't have to be in the weeds. And I think that's a really important thing for any entrepreneur. We love to be in the weeds. We built it. It's our company. But if you want to streamline your company, if you want to maximize the profits, if you want to have what I like to call my beach bum millionaire lifestyle, right? Because I live at the beach and I want to spend time with my kids. And I do this whole mastermind called Beach Bum Millionaire Mastermind to help people shift, right? Then you want to work with that. They say the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. So, and why is that important? When COVID happened, I had 4 or 5 streams. So thank God I had 4 or 5 streams because some shut down and some didn't. So I look at this as, I'm building generational wealth and I want to leave a legacy for my children and my grandchildren and my great grandchildren. And I can do that through these different companies and these different streams of income. But I mean, building your team is key because I tell you, my favorite people to hire are veterans and mill spouses. They get it done. Like I walk in and I'm like, so I need, and they're like, done. And I'm like, but what about done? And I'm like, I need more work for you. Like what so when I have those teams, I am able to go to my kids' sports games. I'm able to go take family trips because I have a really fantastic team that I don't imagine. So that's how I do it. Sometimes we're building 2 new companies out right now. I work more hours because that part of the infrastructure and the build is important. But you want to get yourself to where you actually have a balanced lifestyle enjoying. Because what's the point, right? If I'm working 80, 90 hours a week, then that's not success for me. That's exhaustion. No, so that's how I do it. And I'm always happy if people want to message me for time management tricks. You guys can do that because I learned that the hard way.
Well, and I really appreciate what you said about you hire and you like to hire former vets or family of vets.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, I agree. I had a group that I worked with a couple of years ago. Actually, it was right before COVID. And I worked with them for a couple of years. And then COVID hit. And you just reminded me, you know what? It's time to circle back with them because they were fantastic. A lot of VAs. When I find the name, I'll put them in the show notes because it really, it was terrific. And I agree with you. They are dedicated. But let me ask you, teams, this is really important because you can't do even one company, right? Forget about having 4 or 5, 6 companies with the wrong team. How do you, when you find somebody that is not quite a good fit for you, a lot of times, like what do you do in that situation? Because a lot of times you want to be like, oh, what am I going to do? How do you handle that?
Yeah. So we actually created an apprenticeship program for almost all of our companies. And so the idea is that we bring them in. They have a certain amount of time that they get apprenticed and they get one-on-one training because sometimes I see youth with so much potential, but can I trust them with running a multi-million-dollar division of my company when they have very little experience? And so being a former athlete and coach, I see mentoring and coaching as really important. Every time I've started a company, we see success because we mentor and we train and then we guide them up. So this way we have less turnover, we have more loyalty, and they actually know our systems because everyone that comes to me isn't quite right for the company. And I'll tell you, the evolution of the person of our youth has been very different from 23 years ago when I was hiring people to now. And so it's a very different work ethic. I grew up working with the baby boomers, like work hard, suck it up, no excuses. That was my training. It is very different with this new generation. I have a 15-year-old daughter, so, I know as well. So I really work with my people. I actually interview every person for my company. I sit with my leaders and managers, but it's important that I know every single person. And so I have multiple companies. I have people across the US. that I work with, but I know every single person.
What do you think? What do you think is the most important characteristic when you're going to hire somebody? What are you really looking for that they must have this?
That they have high ethics and morals, and loyalty is very important to me. Because I always say I'm looking for long-term relationships. I have one of our tech people who has worked with us for I think it's about 18 years. And there's so much loyalty and
Love the loyalty.
so I just recently this week, it was disappointing, but I saw a business person I know that was convicted of 15 different fraud cases against them and convicted, and they might go to jail. And it was really devastating because I saw them as what they were saying they were doing is such a really unethical and moral thing that they were doing, which unfortunately they were taking advantage of people. And it was really frustrating for me. But I take my businesses are all about quality, taking care of the people. Our customers are lifelong customers. My events company, I had a woman who stayed with us for 15 years. And I finally said, your son's 15. I'm out of like little kid party stuff for him. Like I had to be like, I don't know what. She'd call me every year. What do you think we should do this year? And when he hit 15, I go, take him to Disneyland. Like, I don't really think he wants a jumper, but she was so loyal. And that's what made our companies huge, was that I went above and beyond. My people went above and beyond. If we made a mistake, we told them. If it wasn't right, we gave them their money back. And so, because that's part of growing as a company too, you make mistakes, your people make mistakes. So that's really, for me, is I want people who believe in quality and ethics and morals and loyalty. And obviously they have to have the skills for that too, but we can train anyone. We have apprentices coming in that don't have design experience. They're going to have it in 6 months. And so I would take that employee any day, a hungry employee that wants to do that, versus the most talented, high level PhD that comes in the door. So that's what I look for in all my companies.
I agree. That hunger, the fire in the belly, the ability that they want growth within themselves so that they can help with the growth of the company. And I love that loyalty, that idea, that highest level. Yes, it's so important. So you've just recently wrote a book that just came out, Authentically You, Empowering Your Way Back to Success. In that book, Julie, are you talking about what we discussed today? Is that why you wrote it?
Yeah, and it's obviously my journey. It's the ugly cry moments. It's the me having like a midlife crisis when I was 30 years old, figuring like, what am I doing? I'm 30 years old. I was in this super high level power position, and I remember just coming in the office thinking, I hate this job. I fought so hard to get it, and I got all these accolades, and I was the first woman in the company to do it, and I hate this job. And it was really a moment of like, who am I? What do I want to do? And why am I here? And just also kind of an identity crisis of going like, is this who I am? If this is success, this sucks. Like I want
Not what I want.
Yeah. And so it definitely talks about the goods and the bads, very vulnerable moments that I would never have shared because I wouldn't want anyone to think of me as less successful for those moments. And so, and then I take what I did for my path and build it out in the book. So that way you have kind of this guide. So at the end of each chapter, there's a guide. It's taking you through the process. Like, how do you find your authentic path? I find a lot of women, especially after COVID, came out and was like, okay, I was working for this company for 20 years. I got let go. I don't know what to do with myself. Or I recently gotten divorced and I haven't been in the business market. What do I do? My children all just went off to college. I feel completely lost. So I feel, especially for women, we're constantly having this like change in path. And so that was really what it was about, was just kind of the honest truth, the goods, the bads, the ugly of my path. Because people would say all the time, oh, you don't have any issues, Julie. I was like, you should see me crying.
Yeah.
Crying in the shower a lot. I've got issues, and so I realized that it was really important to share that with other women so they didn't feel alone in the process of them changing or evolving or finding their path, because it's normal and we all have issues and we all cry, and we just don't want anyone to know, because women culturally have been trained that if we show our vulnerability, we are weak. And when you work in really tough male dominant environments like I did, I trained myself to lock that emotion away and take care of business. And when I finally unlocked that box, it was like,
How good is a good cry? I mean, it just makes you feel like you get that massive release. I mean, I agree. I used to, pride myself, like I worked at Oracle for 10 years, it was a dog eat dog, and they would
yeah,
call me, the pit bull, and I was the bitch on wheels. And I'm like, oh my
right?
God.
God,
And
I feel like
I would get in the shower, I'd shut the door and I'd be like, oh
right?
God.
It's
And
safest
it
way
is.
to cry.
So you are now in a place where you have mentioned over, and we've had many conversations recently, legacy. What do you ultimately want to be known for?
Mm. You know, point in my life that I decided I wanted to give back to women. And I could take a company and create a company and do that. So I could do both. I could work my passion. And that's really what I want to do. I mean, that's why we started She Talks 8 years ago, is I saw the gap in how women treated each other. I saw men mentoring each other and helping each other, women, and I saw women just taking each other out. And I was like, why are we doing this? There's enough room at the table for all of us. We can grow and mentor. There's enough work for all of us. Like, so how do we change that? And really what I wanted to do, especially because I had my daughter, she's 15, is I was like, I don't want her to have to go through all this junk that I did. I mean, we all have our own path, but if I can create a network of women who support each other and I grow that till the day that I die, maybe that's 1 million women, and every single one of those women are making impact, we're going to triple and double it. And we may just change the way that women behave and work together and
Mhm.
create this superpower. Women are a very big superpower in the world of businesses, but we need the support, we need the mentoring, we need the training. And if we can create that, then we've created a generational wealth that will far outreach any money that we will ever have, because we will be this group that is really unstoppable. And so that, I mean, that's my goal. And essentially we've done it, but we want to grow it, right? We're just continuing to grow it. And literally, I do at least 3 to 5 calls a day on people who call me. Hey, I want to be part of She Talks magazine. I want to be part of She Talks. I want to be a member. Like, how do I get into this? And I mean, we're at probably like 5,000 women. I have vetted every single person who's come into the group. I believe in connecting and making sure I know every single woman so I can support them. And I take a call from any of them any day of the week. And so that's really what I want to leave, is this legacy of it. And I don't want to discount my male counterparts. My husband has been a huge part of my success. He supports it. He's the guy behind the scenes. Thank God he's so talented in video and editing and everything. I mean, he runs the whole PR division of all my companies, and he's incredibly talented. But the men in my life have been incredibly supportive as well. And so I always tell people, we're not a feminist group. We love our male counterparts. We have guys show up to She Talks and cheer us on, and husbands show up and boyfriends show up and they volunteer. My son has been to a ton of them. He's only 12 and he's there, handing out cookies, whatever he can do. But that's the legacy that I want to leave, is that I've had plenty of successes in my life. I don't care about any more successes. I want to help other women get success. I want to support them, and I'm going to be right there cheering them on, because
That is so powerful. Now, how would people listening right now, and who are you looking for in the She Talks?
Oh my gosh. Well, She Talks is a platform for any woman to come tell her story. So obviously, if you have a story that you think is impactful, we want to talk with you. We started the She Talks magazine just in November. It's gone huge. So we are always looking for writers. We're looking for women who want to be interviewed. We're looking for advertisers too, because all of this doesn't happen if we don't make a little money to support the cost of it. And then the membership. I mean, same thing. The membership it's like a really good family, because when I say family, sometimes people go like, oh, I have a super dysfunctional family. It's not dysfunctional.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have a few. I mean, we're
Right.
human. I'm sure we'll have issues, but it's a very safe place for
Mhm.
women to come and not just share what's happening in their business world, but as well share about their lives. And so really open to any women who believe in the mission and vision. If you're just coming in to try and make a buck and, try and, sell to every single person, that's really not what this is about. It organically creates, you organically will find clients, networking partners, all that stuff organically. That just happens because of, I think, just the raw vulnerability and truth and love that happens within the group. And so we have women from around the world. We just had someone from Australia, New Zealand, London, and Ireland come on into our group. I love all their accents too. They're wonderful.
It is so good. And one of the things that you and I both love to do is share. And one thing I have to ask you is, if you were to have to come over to my house and I said, all right, what would be that hostess gift that you'd bring me? And you're like, hey, you've got to try this. This is like, you're going to love it. What would that be?
Okay. So I'm on a big health kick because I'm getting older and I want to make sure that I take care of myself. So and you also know I support veterans. So for several years, I've been getting different type of supplements from Alpha Elite Performance. So it's alphaeliteperformance.com. And recently, I've been using their Alpha Collagen, and I'll tell you why, because I'm 46 and I'm getting older. And
you look great. You look fantastic.
Well, my hair has been thinning. My nails were getting really weird, and I'm going through the super fun perimenopause. And
you and me both.
Why is my body freaking out? And so Travis, who's the owner and creator of it, told me about all these supplements. I started taking them. Guys, this is like my real hair. It's come back. I used to have extensions, okay, because my hair was getting so that my skin, I was having issues with weird rashes and stuff, all gone away. My nails are growing like crazy. So I have become a big advocate of Alpha Elite and what they're doing. Of course, they have other great things in there too. Collagen's what I love. The Alpha Immune. Guys, I took this during the 3 years of COVID. Sick and never got COVID. It's
so good. So then we will put this into the show notes. And how can people find you? How can they hear more about She Talks and all the other things that you're working on?
Yeah, easiest way, drjulieducharme.com. You can get me there, and that has in contact with me. As I mentioned, I talk to everyone. I do. It's a crazy schedule, but I believe in the power of never turning someone down to hear their story. So I will get to you it might take me a little bit of time, but I will get to you if you send us a message.
Well, Dr. Julie, thank you so much for being here. And your words of wisdom, I know, resonated so much with me. And I know that everyone listening is like, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. And they could go out and actually start using some of the things that you have said. So thank you for being here. And everyone, as you go forward, you've heard about pivots, relaunches. And remember, a relaunch doesn't have to be some massive, oh my God, here's A and I can't get to Z until I've done everything. No, small steps, small micro actions to get there. That's when you see success. So right now, live now, love now, relaunch in to the best version of you, to the best identity that you want to be creating. And we will see you again next week. Thanks again. If you like this video and want to get more like it, head over here.